Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the Irish Mags Show for yet another live recording during this blissfully quiet summer window in the world of Newcastle United. I'm your host Paul, and this week not only are we blessed with the presence of my usual co-hosts in Alan and Krisho, we're also delighted to welcome back a very good friend of the show this week. It is, of course, Matty Renton from the Magpie channel. Welcome in, lads, and of course, welcome in, Matty. And as we were just saying, Matty, prior to hitting the big red button, you're looking very nice and tanned and relaxed here. So what's going on? You know, is it that quiet that you're just hitting the sunbed, or have you been out on the beaches? Or
I'd love to say I was stunning it up in Ibiza or something like, but no, just enjoying the rare bit of sun we get here in the tune. Do you know what I mean? Like you say, it's been a bit quiet the last week or so. Not else to do but do the garden, really. Sound like Dan Ashworth.
Yeah.
So, in the sun.
you're on garden leave.
On garden leave. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see by your own channel, obviously it's the Magpie channel for anyone who's not aware, but I can see you've been keeping busy, a few different videos coming out. Obviously the kits, the Paul Mitchell announcement. We might even end up having a chat about lettering on the side of the Newcastle Stadium at some point today. But you're keeping busy, obviously, even though it is, let's call it preseason as we gear up for kind of the first few friendlies, transfer window. Or are you enjoying a bit of
keeping busy, mate. Obviously got the stuff for the Euros as well, hosting the fan zone here in Newcastle. So that's been decent as Southgate continues to fluke it. So we've got that to look forward to on Wednesday. So, there's still lots going on, even though things will hopefully pick up after the Euros out with a few signings.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You'd expect it, yeah. I mean, I'm sitting there watching games going, when is he going to bring Anthony Gordon on? When is he going to bring Anthony Gordon on? And now it's just you kind of accepted it's probably not going to happen. But we did say we'd be better off getting you on the Monday while you're in good form, just in case things go south on Wednesday. But equally, as much as we know a lot of the Irish Mags have a secret desire to see England crash and burn, we'll wish you good luck, Matty, seeing as you are on duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers, mate. Well, that's it, and obviously Trippier's played every game, but it'd be great to see Gordon get a chance more than the 4 minutes he got in. What was it, the second game? It's just outrageous, isn't it? You know, it was heartbreaking seeing him in that huddle the other night, or not in the huddle. Seeing him on the outskirts of it, just looking depressed, looking like most of us when Southgate's England are on TV. But yeah, for the whole tournament, we've been crying out for a direct left winger. You've got statistically, without the two glasses on, statistically the best left winger in the Premier League. They're available on the bench, and he just doesn't use them. It's absolutely insane. But
do you reckon it's a loyalty? Do you reckon it's a loyalty thing, Matty? Like it's kind of a, like he's sticking with the players that he trusts, even though he has one of the best left wingers in the Premier League. Like it really doesn't make any sense why he wouldn't play him.
It shows it is loyalty for me, mate. Because when Foden, who's having a stinking tournament, kind of doesn't get replaced unless it's for Trent, unless it's for a full back. You've got Eze. Even Eze is getting. I like Eze; he's a great player, but Gordon would have suited that more. You'd get him behind more. He'd run at people. He'd create space. It's exactly what we're lacking that natural width. So to not have Gordon getting a chance and Eze, I don't know if it's the Crystal Palace route. It's against Newcastle. There's just something he doesn't like about Anthony Gordon, isn't there? He just can't get in. So it's mental. Everyone else in the world of football, even people who don't like Newcastle, even Sunderland fans, even pundits that clearly don't rate Newcastle, even them are saying Anthony Gordon's one. He should be getting a chance. So everyone but Southgate is picking him.
Like it's oddly ironic as well is that they bring him out to speak at the press conferences.
They stitched him right off there. They stitched him off there. He's got grazed chin. His wrist snapped, and he's like, "Oh, he's going to sit in front of the press, son." Like they did him dirty there. Like when everyone's seen that, you thought normally who sits in front of the press is in line to play, innit? You had Konza doing it the last week before the quarters. So I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't pick Gordon. Like it's they threw him under the bus there. Threw him off the bike. It's Southgate's not Davis.
We'll play him this season. We will, because he's not going anywhere. We'll play.
Well, that's one positive, isn't it? At least he's going to come back fresh. One positive Brazil getting knocked out last night was Bruno can finally get some rest since he's played about 167 games in the past 10 months. So it's nice that he's going to be a bit fresher as well. Same with Gordon.
Yeah. We're all so traumatized by injuries, and obviously even Louis Miley picking up one there. We're just happy for players not to play, and I suppose we'll talk about it probably in a bit as well, because we're going to talk about preseason. There's a busy summer ahead for some of these guys as well. But yeah, just with Gordon, even with Gordon, I was like, I'll have him take a penalty. He's a great penalty taker, and then he still had Eze on. So anyway, let's see. Fingers crossed. Maybe he'll get a rare few minutes in the semi-final, but I don't think any of us.
No, probably not. Maybe an extra time. Probably not.
Right. Look, we've an action-packed show this week for the next hour or so. While we have Matty here, we're going to be making him work double time. Questions in chat, folks. We're going to go through a whole host of topics. As we said, we're going to chat about preseason. We might chat a bit about scheduling for the Premier League as well. Have to chat about Paul Mitchell. There's some really good content coming out lately about his own track record and maybe the plans of the club. And of course, the big one, we're going to have a quick chat about transfers. By quick, I mean it's going to be our main spotlight, and we could probably spend 2 hours talking about it. But the big focus here, guys, would be which of the transfers we need to make in terms of those specific positions with all the different names in circulation. And I know Matty definitely has some thoughts on those. So get your questions in, get your comments into the chat. And of course, don't forget to smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel wherever you're tuning in. So we're going to get straight into it, guys. In between answering the kind of questions that we get here and there, just to start off with the preseason, Matty, less than 3 weeks' time, I think we're going to have a friendly against Hull. And then it's off to Japan. We're going to face Euro Red Diamonds, which is not a mouthful at all, Yokohama Marinos. And then, of course, what we're now calling the Sella Weekender, which sounds like a really good piss-up, if you ask me, with clashes against... I was actually looking at it. The season that we didn't qualify for the Champions League, lads, we've ended up playing against Girona and Brest, who are both qualified for the first time in their history. So that would have been more appropriate last year. But anyway, it's easy to look back. So it's going to be a good weekend, I guess. The first question for all three of you, lads, and we'll start with you, Matty. Will you be attending any of these events? Will we see you with that lovely tan out in the streets of Japan? Or will you be hitting up the streets for the Sella Weekender?
I wish I was going to Japan. Like, it was close while looking at going, but it's just a huge expense, man, and it's just so far. The flights are. We were looking at it was about 25 hours, and it was still thousands and thousands, and there's other things going on. So unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen. Although it would have been good for the tan. It's like 30 odd degrees in Tokyo in July. So it would have been nice. But yeah, we'll be in even better surroundings in Hull. We've already got the ticket going down there. So that'll be good crack anyway. First big one, not too far to go. And be at the Sella Weekend as well. Obviously, we're going to Germany as well, aren't we, before Hull?
Has that been announced?
Hasn't been officially announced yet, but last I heard it was happening.
We're playing Leeds, aren't we? Well, we're not playing Leeds. We're playing Leeds in a behind closed door friendly that they have announced, but we haven't, which is weird.
Oh, they announced. The Leeds have announced, have they? I hadn't seen that.
Leeds have said they're playing an unnamed Premier League club that have just joined Adidas, but Villa are playing a friendly that night. So we're the only unnamed Premier League club that have joined Adidas. So it's one of them things, yeah.
Behind closed doors, onto them Adidas games in Germany probably. So, mate, looking forward to Hull, looking forward to Sella Weekend. Got to lift the trophy. Do you know what I mean? Back-to-back trophies. Me and Jacob Murphy are taking this seriously. Yeah, got to reclaim this trophy.
You're dead right. And apparently, lads, and I'm looking at Alan and Krisho here. There's going to be some Irish mags traveling in numbers. I'm just going to check. You can hear me okay? I know someone said something about my microphone. Is it okay?
You're all good, Jay. You're all good.
You're all good now.
All good.
Right.
Sadly,
we love hearing you.
Yeah.
I hear that you're going on tour around that weekend, or are my facts incorrect, Krisho? Are you breaking free?
I know this is live, so hopefully my bosses aren't listening, which they're not. I don't think they are anyway. But I'll be working on Friday over to Newcastle in the morning time. It was just kind of a case of like, why not? And then once we talked about it in the group, it seems like, I don't know, Al, but it seems like about 30 odd are going Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Nice.
So Newcastle is going to be Irish-tastic over that Sella Weekender. So there'll be pints of Guinness all over the shop, and it'll be a right crack. So we're all in different hotels around the city, and down to Big Market on Friday night, Saturday night. It's going to be class.
I'll see you there.
Class. See you there. Love it.
That's probably timely as well, or at least relevant, Matty, because we got a question in from the Irish Mags WhatsApp group before we were going recording. When we announced we were going to have you on the show, and a question in from Chris Regan, who said, seeing as Matty's a big fan of Guinness, where in the tune does he think serves the best Guinness? These are the hard-hitting questions.
Those are the hard-hitting questions, and I'll tell you, it is... what's it called? It's the one next door to Filthy's, Passing Clouds. That is the best one, Passing Clouds.
Passing Clouds.
Because obviously Filthy's is the Irish mad bar, innit? But I think next door is the best one. It's the same company, but yeah, Passing Clouds is my go-to for the Guinness, for the forged. Apparently, unsurprisingly, the Irish centre has meant to be really good. You must have been there. I still haven't been there.
Yeah.
Is that one good? I still haven't been.
It flows on match day. It certainly flows. So it's probably worth.
Once you unstick your shoes from the floor, it goes down okay. But it's a bit of a mad out spot. But if it's busy, the points are good. If it's really busy, which it usually is.
Passing clouds on the big market. Get yourselves there.
Passing clouds. Okay, got it.
Guinness is wrong.
Nice.
Hey, cider boy here. You drink Monster and cider.
Careful now. Alan, I can see a big button here that allows me to boot you from this channel very quickly. So just be careful now.
Although Guinness in the summertime, if it's sunny over in Newcastle for the sale weekend, it might not be the greatest idea in the world.
You just have to drink it
up
quick
to here
before
with
it goes, before it turns. You just have to drink it.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Excellent stuff.
Good.
And just on that pre-season topic, we kind of mentioned at the top of the show. I've listened to a couple of podcasts talking about this, and there's kind of a mixed view. Obviously, if we think back a couple of years ago, Newcastle in pre-season, you might get them travelling to Dublin for a friendly or a training camp, and maybe a little bit into Europe, but not too far. Obviously, what we're seeing now is the right phrase is probably big club behaviour, right? A big old trip to Japan, as much as it is about the football, and there are actually some decent teams are going to play. Like the Marinos, they're league champions, so it's not going to be Mickey Mouse football teams. But Matty, would you look at it and go, this is nothing but positive for Newcastle in terms of obviously the branding, the international kind of representation, the touring, the big club mentality? Or can you see it from probably Eddie Howe's perspective, where he's thinking, I could do without this, all of this fuss, this travel, the tiredness, the lads who are coming from the Copa America or from the Euros. He'd probably rather, like we kind of mentioned, go into a closed door training session for a week and just hit it hard on the training pitch.
I think especially it wouldn't be so bad if this trip was next summer, where obviously there's no major tournament on. But like you said there, when you've got Bruno flying over from Copa America, you've got, Gordon hasn't played, but even Shaw there, who's got to a quarter final. There's loads of players that have been representing us across the Euros, across Copa America. Not ideal at all, because some of the lads are coming back on Thursday, Friday this week, I think it is. So it's not ideal, and I think Eddie Howe would much prefer one of those trips to Austria that he did a couple of years back. Somewhere close, somewhere chilled out, and where they can just crack on instead of having all this hysteria and all these events they'll have to do like they did last year in America. They'll do it again in Japan, obviously appease the fans that are over there, and it is great for those fans that are out there in Asia who haven't seen Newcastle for years and all of that. And I get it's to grow the fan base and grow the financial fair play base, isn't it? You know what I mean? Get around things like that. Increase the revenue, the income, but yeah, on a reasonable thing, I wish they would just gone to Malaga. So jumping a Ryanair, nice and cheap, 1.5 away. You know what I mean? That would be ideal for me. Much better. But it's modern day football, isn't it? So part and parcel of it, I'm afraid.
It is, and from a pre-season perspective, I guess, like we talk about big clubs, every other club is doing this, right? Whether it's America, whether it's off to different places in Asia, wherever it's been. So I think if we're going to be a big club, we need to have the big club mentality. And I'm sure, obviously, Eddie Howe, as much as he would rather not do this big trip, he'd fully on board with the financial benefits and the marketing and everything like that. But yeah, it is tricky for us to obviously attend. I guess the tricky thing must be, especially in a window like this, we all fingers crossed, hope and expect. And Alan, I look at you here. We talked about this a few weeks ago where we were like, okay, maybe 5-6 signings coming in. That's tough when you're over and back to Japan, and then you're doing your seller weekenders and obviously training camp they might have, talks about, like we said, Germany, Adidas. It's hard to then blend it all together when you've got new players coming in and out, because as much as everyone wants to get their business done now, early in July, it just doesn't happen.
No, especially the way Eddie Howe wants you to be bedded into the team before you play. So it's if we sign a player the week before the window ends, you won't see him start a game until September probably. Like Bruno was 10 games before he really started the game. Botman was kind of thrown in at the deep end because he had to. Pope's a goalkeeper, that's a different kettle of fish. But you're an outfield player. I don't think you're going to be getting a game anytime soon if you just joined us. So it'll be interesting to see. And I know Eddie wanted the transfer dealings done early, and this Euros didn't help it at all. So I'd say next couple of weeks could get interesting to see if we get things signed, sealed, delivered before we go to Japan. Never know.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like the end of the unofficial window or deadline day in terms of that June 30th was a bit hectic. I think everyone thought, wow, it's going to be equally hectic now the first and second week in July. But again, you have to be realistic. And we're going to talk about transfers. I can see a lot of the questions and comments coming in about transfers, guys. We are going to keep them coming in. We are going to go through them all when we talk about transfers. But just before we get there, one other big topic that's very much related to transfers was that huge announcement. And I think, to be fair, it is a huge announcement. We've been saying for weeks, we couldn't wait for this Dan Ashworth saga to end. It was just dragging on. It wasn't benefiting anyone. Obviously, the money that's associated to that has probably helped our PSR quest. But it kind of came... I don't want to say it came from nowhere, but it did take a lot of people by surprise that we announced Paul Mitchell as our new sporting director. Now, Matty, I'm sure you're well aware of Paul Mitchell's history, obviously, in terms of the clubs he's managed, the level, the signings he's made in the past, obviously working with Spurs, RB Leipzig, Monaco, I think Southampton as well. Were you surprised, or did you have your ear to the ground on this one? Because the other thing that was going around was that he was originally first choice even before Dougie Friedman, and then we've kind of re-returned. True or false is the big question there.
I would say true, yeah. Mentioned him a few months ago on a video where he was the front runner at one point, and then was it Rui? Someone came in from Roma.
Pinto.
Yeah, he came in, and then everything was on Freeman, and we put all our eggs in that basket. But I think Mitchell, it looked like he didn't really want to get back into work yet, if you like, because obviously Man U targeted him as well. He turned them down. So Newcastle went back in. And something's changed in his mindset, really, where he's thought, right, yeah, I'll jump back in. And thankfully, that's the case. Now, I didn't think it was going to happen as quick as it did. That was unbelievable. How it was just like, I loved that. It was like an old school signing, wasn't it? If you like, where there was no Romano, there was no Sky Sports, no nothing saying like, oh, Mitchell's going to be at Newcastle in the next 40 hours, anything like that. Just the club just tweeted and it was like, what the hell? Like, it's the official announcement. And then, listen, I was buzzing because his CV speaks for itself. Some of those signings, Marnie at Southampton and Kunku at Leipzig, Heung-min Son at Spurs. If you can bring some of that to us and the wealth of experience from around Europe, he's a big name in the game as well. I think we've actually done better. I think we've literally got a better director of football than Dan Ashworth, and then got money for Ashworth. Like, it's been perfect. Let's just hope we can crack on now as the window goes on.
Yeah, it's a case where, like, again, timing is key here, because to come in now, like as we said, the first week of this new PSR calendar year, whatever you want to call it, it's totally thrown off my sense of what day and week and month it is. I instantly have to think, where are we in relation to the 30th of June? But I think to have him in early, in one way, I was curious as to, like, is there suddenly going to be a change into our original targets? So we're going to go through a bunch of names on today's show. Are all of those going to slowly become irrelevant because in comes Paul Mitchell with a whole bunch of other names? You'd like to think that's not going to happen, and maybe, obviously, he's known about this for a while. The club have known about it for a while. But it'll be interesting to see the impact. Does it change? Does it delay things in terms of our transfer dealings? Or are we just going to kind of continue the momentum we have?
Does anyone know when, I think it's either Murdad or Amanda put out on Twitter that they were in Monaco visiting old friends, and I thought it was to get the shirt sponsor from PBH in Monaco. That's what they were doing, a business deal. But it seems to be that possibly maybe they were having an old chat down in Monaco as well, just because there's not been mention of any compensation or anything, right? So Paul Mitchell was unemployed, wasn't he? He wasn't with Monaco. He's unemployed, and we brought him in. So I was just kind of thinking like that maybe they were getting it done there. Is there anybody from Monaco, lads, that we could kind of have a
sure. I'm amazed you weren't there yourself, because you've told us in the past you spent a lot of time with Miggy and his family over in Paraguay.
Jeff Hendrick. But listen. Also Paul Mitchell did get in touch through his representatives, and I am going over at the Stella Weekender to have a chat with him just around signings and stuff. He just wants to know from an international perspective who we should go for. I was thinking O'Brien in from Leon. That's who we should get.
So if anybody sees Crisho in the Irish Centre over in Newcastle with his feet stuck to the floor, deep in conversation with a well-dressed fellow, that's going to be Paul Mitchell.
All right.
And a good comment in here from Chris Cummings, who says Mitchell is better than Ashworth 100%, but you hope Eddie and Andy Howe let him crack on. No bang average English D players. And that's probably a good point just to finish up on Mitchell, Matty, as well. There is this kind of general thought that, and you see a lot of the rumours going around about our previous signings, that particularly Eddie Howe, Andy Howe, Tyndall, whatever, very much favour Premier League signings. There's a lot of discussion that, when we went for the likes of Bruno or Isak or Tonali, that, Eddie Howe actually wanted the likes of Gallagher or McTominay or Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, I don't know how true or how rigid that is, but again, I'd love to pick your brain on, do you think this actually would change that and start to shift to more big name or more international exciting signings? Or do you kind of think that's a bit of a falsity? It's not really the case either way.
I think it was interesting what you said before about all these names that we've been linked with. Will they carry on? And there's no doubt that, listen, we know that bloody Ashworth was sending emails when he was even at Newcastle United. So it'd be naive of us to think that Mitchell hasn't been having conversations with Newcastle in the last month or so. They definitely would have had the targets. They would have been talking back and forth and everything. We couldn't officially announce it until after PSR, after Ashworth left, that Mitchell came on board. But the signings now will be, I think, lean towards why Mitchell's been brought in that sense, because Ashworth was brought in more of an internal cog. It wasn't just transfers for Dan Ashworth. It was, work on the women's team, grow the academy, sort this out, sort that out. Mitchell's predominantly recruitment now. So your Andy Howes and your Darren Eales has been working hard to get the deals done recently, like Kelly. That'll be turning a little bit now because Mitchell's been brought in to bring in these players that he did for the likes of Spurs. We mentioned Son. He was behind that. All the other players that he's brought in, he's going to be trying to pluck out these gems. And that's where we need to go for me because, listen, apart from Anthony Gordon, Sven Botmans, your Isaacs, your Brunos, those are the players you want to be finding. You know what I mean? We all are getting frustrated when we're linked with bloody Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Conor Gallagher and that. Do you know what I mean? We don't want players like that anymore, to be fair. So we need to be looking at those players from abroad for me. Not saying that you can't get people from the Premier League. Listen, I think Tino's brilliant. I think Lewis Hall's going to be cracking. But predominantly, Nick Pope was a bargain. Let's look abroad. Let's find the Isaacs and the Brunos. Do you know what I mean? It's easier said than done, but I think that's definitely where the eyes will be now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about a Chris show as well. Sometimes it's specifically English players, but definitely Premier League players, there's almost a tax. I think we were chatting about, even like, let's say Max Kilman, was a very, very big fee in there. There's rumours going around of, all kinds of fees for different players, but it does feel like they do cost more, right? Whether they're English or whether they're Premier League proven, etc. Whereas it's probably fair to say there's more value to be got on the continent, let's say. And there's the other reality of those clubs in those leagues. They're not enjoying the same finances and budgets as Premier League clubs are, right? And we saw that when we bought Tonali from Milan.
Yeah, well, when we were talking earlier, just before the start of the pod here today, they were saying like Morgan Gibbs White. I seen it around there today and yesterday. £70 million. Yikes! To bring in Morgan Gibbs White. I mean, he's handy. He's played with Gordon in the under-21s. I mean, I don't know where we'd actually play him because we've discussed this before. He's not really a right winger. I don't know where we'd play him. But £70 million? What? I mean, we could get 2 European players for that. No problem. You know the guy you mentioned, and I know we're going to go into it now, but that Bakayoko guy, ever since you mentioned that to me, I've been watching. I went back and looked at some highlights and so on and everything else. He is class, this guy. He's not getting a game for the Netherlands, right, at the moment in the Euros.
Belgium.
Or the Belgium, sorry.
No, he didn't get any real game time in the Euros, which is in one way good for a club who's looking at him because the price doesn't really jump if he's not shown at the Euros.
But
interesting.
Morgan Gibbs White, £70 million is insanity. I mean, honestly, nowhere near that valuation at all.
And as Niall says there, he's a 10 and we don't play a 10. I actually did. We'll jump into another question. Again, we want to make Matty work for the money we aren't paying him today, or the deals that he's not going to get from us. There was another question here from Sean, one of the Irish mags that everyone knows, Sean Bowes. Do we see a possible formation change for next season, Matty? And would we like one? And that kind of ties into, if we were to sign a player, someone like Morgan Gibbs White, who I think the general agreement is he's a 10, right? He's an attacking midfielder, sits behind a striker, which we don't really do or have in the past under Eddie Howe. Do you expect a formation change, or would you like one? Probably 2.
Nah, you're not going to get a formation change from Eddie Howe. That 4-3-3 is tried, tested, swears by it. So no, I think if we did sign Gibbs White, which definitely could happen, not for 70 million, mind. You would pay him as a right winger. Listen, he's played there for England. I think he's played 20 odd games in and out for Forest there, but we all know his best position, like Chris was saying there, is a 10. So, and people in the chat are saying he's a 10, which he is. But you know what Eddie Howe likes to do? He likes to change people's positions. You know what I mean? Joe Linton and that. So he might mix it up. He might try and work on him. If he thinks there's something there, he might try and work on him. And there's nothing to say
John
that
Ruddy up
couldn't.
front at some point, no?
Yeah, there's nothing to say that couldn't work. So, yeah, but a formation change is well out of the question for me. I think even at times last season, you think, oh, well, with the injuries, maybe we should just change it up a little bit, yeah. Maybe a bit more in midfield. You know, we're getting done a little bit, especially start of the season win in midfield, and everyone's crying out for a 6, and a lot of fans still are crying out for that DM just to sit there. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. 3 is going to be there. Tonali, Bruno, Joe Linton. And the three up front, the 2 wingers. That's the way it's going to be. I'm afraid. And why? I'm not disagreeing with it. Listen, that formation got us top 4 in a cup final. So keep going. Do you know what I mean? Keep going. Without the injuries, you'd hope we'll be able to replicate that again next year. But there and thereabouts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think even with all the transfer talk, and you know, we're going to talk about positions we think really need to be filled. But the general consensus seems to be everybody around the Newcastle community, every fan, every supporters club, are all quite happy with the idea of Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton starting in that midfield. We're going to need some time. I mean, as much as the fact that they've all been at the club for quite a while, they've not really had too much opportunities to play together as a 3. And we've seen Newcastle have issues in the past where we've got these gaps set up in the midfield. But I think at the end of the day, still a mouth-watering midfield to have. And, you know, you've got the likes of Miley, you've got the likes of Joe Willock in there, and obviously Longstaff, who knows exactly what Eddie wants. So I think midfield is probably an area we're not too worried about. We'll come to areas we are a bit more worried about, but I wanted to just quickly run something by you, lads, before we move into transfers. And again, Alan, I know you're keeping your finger on the pulse here. One thing that did pop up, which is quite substantial from an Irish Mags perspective, is in relation to Premier League fixtures, particularly in the first few weeks of the season. So we know we're going to open against Southampton. That's the 17th of August, I think. God, my numbers and dates. And that's going to be the Saturday kickoff. But it looks like 4 fixtures have already been amended slightly in terms of having date/time changes. And the club announced it was Bournemouth away on the 25th of August, Spurs at home on the 1st of September, which I know is one that a lot of Irish Mags have their eyes on, Wolves away on the 15th, and then Man City at home, which is one I've very much got my eye on the 28th of September in terms of switcheroos. And again, for somebody privileged like Matty here, this doesn't really affect him as much because he's kind of in the area and he just has to slightly amend his plans to go to the beach or the sunbed. But for us Irish Mags who are booking flights, travelling, and as we know, Ryanair is not a very easy thing to adjust or make changes to. This is a fairly big deal, Alan. Anything that catches your eye, in particular those home fixtures, obviously with Spurs and Man City?
Yeah, it's the fact that the Spurs game still isn't confirmed as a time. It's a potential to do a day trip. And I'm looking at that Spurs game going, I could fly in that morning, fly out that evening. That's a 70, 80 quid trip for me. That's perfect. But they still haven't confirmed. Now, the likelihood of Newcastle versus Spurs being the 4:30 game on a Sunday when Man United are playing Liverpool at the same time, it's slim to none. But I know for a fact that if I go and book that, it'll be given as the 4:30 game. And I'll be sitting there going, I hate my life. So it's... We're at Sky and BT's... it's their power. We have to bow down to them at the end of the day. So, but I still think that you should be given at least 6 to 8 weeks notice so that you can get things booked, and after that they shouldn't be changed anymore. Speaking from experience of spending 6 days in Newcastle when I went to watch a match that was meant to be on a Saturday that ended up being played on a Monday, it gets a bit long in the tooth when you're going, what am I going to do today?
Well, now we know how you can pass the time now because we know where the best Guinness in Newcastle is. So that solved that problem.
That's
the start.
Yeah, it is an inconvenience largely, right? We do see the price of flights go up when obviously the numbers start booking them up. And yeah, as we said, when they get changed with not too much notice, it does really derail some of the plans. And we've seen in the past, we've had a lot of lads kind of scrambling to get into Edinburgh or flying to Leeds or do whatever to try and get over, or even to, driving up to Belfast to catch a different flight. So it's awkward, but at the end of the day, the Irish Mags are nothing if not tough and persevering when it comes to travelling to Newcastle. Aidan shouts Lady Grays for a Guinness here. Do you know that one, Matty? Lady Grays? Trust a dub who lives in Newcastle.
I don't, but I will trust them and I will check that out. Most definitely. Where is Lady Grays again? Is that...
Lady Grays.
Like,
hopefully it's a place that you won't get in trouble for going to, and that's all we can say about that.
Yeah.
I have been there before, but I didn't get a Guinness. I'll try that one out. I'll try that out.
Yes.
Shakespeare
Add
Street.
it to the list.
Very nice.
Shakespeare Street. All right. Open till 3 a.m. Thank you. Good morning.
Keep the recommendations coming, folks.
That went
Maybe
down
you've had
for
a
the
nice
weekend today, all right?
Yeah.
Back down on the list here. One sec. Lady Grace. Right.
We do need to collate our full list of pubs to go to, in particular for Guinness, and obviously for cider drinkers like Alan who just have a bit of a sweet tooth and can't handle it and stuff.
Yeah,
drink it off the street. So Passing Clouds, Lady Grace. Doesn't sound like pubs, but nightclubs. Nightclubs. Anybody? Nightclubs.
If you're drinking pints of Guinness in a nightclub, you should be on a list somewhere. That's all I'm saying to that one.
No, I'm just saying, like, big market, that whole area, like, there's loads of places to go dancing and giving stocks, like I'm saying.
And we will be revealing in the next few weeks, and I'm looking at Alan here, some potential information about destinations for Irish Mags travelling as groups. But for the moment, no, we'll keep our lips sealed until the time is right. Okay, lads, we'll take a really, really, really short break, and we're going to come back and talk straight away about transfers, because I know that's what we all want to talk about, and I know that's what our listeners want to hear. We'll be right back momentarily. Transfers. And I'm looking at the questions coming here, lads, and Matty, we're going to come straight over to you. What we thought we'd do today, in particular with regard to transfers, because there's so many names floating around, we don't mention that abbreviation too often here, ITK, but what we do like to talk about and speculate is the names that are obviously being repeated several times, depending on the source. And I love chatting about it in such a way that the more we talk about the same names kind of going around in circles, when we do get that shock surprise signing that just comes out of nowhere, I just live for that. And that's what it used to be like. You said it yourself, Matty. That was like the old days. So what we're going to do, and I can see a load of questions coming in here, we might just go through a couple of different roles within the team that we feel, or that seems to be common knowledge we're looking to fill. I'm going to throw some names at you, lads. We're going to see what the listeners have in chat, so keep it coming. And then if you lads, Alan, Krisho, Matty, have any other names, where we want to kind of come out of each role is, who do we need to sign? This is all about transfers we need to make happen, in particular one specific signing from what we have. And Matty, because you're the guest, we'll start with you at centre back, because I think the general consensus is, because we're going to miss Botman, we're going to miss Lascelles for the start of the season. Fabian Schär has a lot of minutes in those legs, and he does well, but there's a lot going on. It seems like at least one, if not two, centre backs maybe on the cards. So the names that I have here in front of me that I've collated from all of the whispers and rumours, and I can promise you it's not just from Krisho's phone, because I would never look in there.
No.
Malik Thiaw of AC Milan, Fikayo Tomori of AC Milan, Dean Huijsen of, I think it's Juventus properly, Jean-Claire Todibo, Jared Branthwaite. There's some of the names that have gone around from a centre-half perspective. So the question for you, Matty, before we open it up, any of those names are ones you would literally jump on, or would you be looking in a different direction?
I wouldn't mind Todibo and Tomori, to be honest. Those are the two that jump out at me. I know we'll be linked with Todibo for a while. Man, you obviously want him, but there's rumours that they can't get him because of the ownership. I'm sure that'll get thrown out the way and they can just do what they want. But it would be nice just to have him over them for the crack. Listen, that Xiaoling's getting really heavy, isn't it? The last week or so, that's growing even more, that one. So, young, decent German defender. Sounds good. Decent price as well. 25-30 million rumoured. The one I want, though, surprisingly, the Italian, Bongiorno. Yeah?
Oh, yes.
Get him in. He's been linked as well.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love him, even though it looks like he may be going to, is it Napoli now,
Napoli,
maybe?
Yeah, I saw Napoli.
Yeah, so that's a shame, because that would have worked out very well for me, for obvious reasons. But he is actually a quality player as well. Calafori as well, who obviously had a very good Euros. He looks closer and closer to going to Arsenal every day. But listen, to everyone on that list, Branthwaite, if people are leaning towards Eddie Howe wanting everyone, Brexit ball, then that would be the perfect signing for him. It'd be a lot of money. So yeah, man, anyone on that list improves us, to be honest with you. Really does.
Yeah, there's some good names, lads. And Krisho and Alan, there's a comment in here from Niall that says Inacio would be his dream signing, who I believe is it Sporting Lisbon? He plays
Lisbon,
alongside Diamande. And Alan, I know you're a big fan of Diamande. You're probably just going to say you'll bring them both in, seeing as they're buddies and they know each other.
No, I want Huijsen. Dean Huijsen is who I'd be bringing in. He looks quality, he does. just think he's going to be some serious player for us.
Very young. He's very young as well. That would be the only thing. But you'd like to think if he was to arrive in, that maybe there'd be a bit more experience there. Now we know Lloyd Kelly is in, but again, part of me thinks we're going to see Lloyd Kelly at left back, just the way Eddie will go about things. Krisho, anyone else on centre half?
No, you know it, and I've been saying it for a long time, right? And people can say whatever they wish, but I'm going to do it live again. And if we don't sign him this summer, I will give everybody on this pod, not the listeners, just the people on the pod, and that includes yourself, Matty, a free pint of Guinness in Newcastle. And you can have a free pint of cider, Al.
I'll drink the Guinness because I know I'm going to get this pint of Guinness off you because we're not signing him.
We are signing Joachim Anderson.
We're not.
And he's going to come in just before the end of the summer transfer window just to help out. Yeah, he's not going to be a blockbuster signing. It's on the cards.
Yeah.
Just saying it. Joachim Anderson's coming in, especially after his Euros performance. Very good stuff. So there you go. It's exclusive.
Yeah.
I agree with Niall.
Yeah, I mean, Inacio is a good shout, to be fair. I mean, as much as I like the idea of Malik Thiaw, again, I think we have a thing with AC Milan. Tomori would be a dream, lads. I said this before a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We also mentioned, again, we could ask Matty whether he thinks Southgate will still be the manager of England in a couple of weeks or months' time. But if you're Tomori, you're sitting there going, I need to get back to play in the Premier League because I want to play for England. There's a path there. But yeah, I could see one of them because I think we do have open dialogue with Milan, clearly. So yeah, that's where I'd be leaning. So first transfer that we need to make is a centre-back. And we're kind of looking at, Matty kind of lean towards Todibo, maybe Malik Thiaw or Tomori, or as we said, one of the younger players. Okay. That's a good start, lads. We don't ask for much, just a couple of 50, 60 million pounds. That's fine. Let's move up to another key position that we've talked about a lot, which is right wing or right forward, depending on how you want to look at it, right? On the right-hand side of that front three. This seems to be obviously one of the key focus areas. If Miggy leaves, we're very much left with Jacob Murphy. And, Jacob Murphy does great things, including going on the beer with Matty for the Cellar Weekender. But I think the reality is this is definitely a key focus area. Now, bear with me while I read all of the names I've seen in the last week because everybody's looking at this. Federico Chiesa, Pedro Neto, Bakayoko, Brian Mbeumo, Anthony Elanga, Rafinha, Somerville, Soule, Jared Bowen. That's just a little sample there, lads, of quite a lot of wingers. Now, I'll pop up a couple of the suggestions from chat. We've Jackie Nicholson, who brought in one we spoke about before, Alan, which was Takefusa Kubo.
The Japanese Gordon.
Shout. Exactly. Nico Williams is being thrown around. A big fee for sure.
Yeah. Big wages too.
I know Elanga was also thrown in there. I think it was by Dave as well. So, Matty, of all those names, or of all those names we didn't mention, I think there's a consensus that we do need to fill in this role. Do you see it being one of those names? Is there a particular name in that list you would pounce on and say get them in now because that should be where we'd spend a lot of the budget?
Brian Mbeumo for me may not be the fanciest. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Where people are looking, he had the Nico Williams, the Kubos, and that, but yeah, especially Williams now after the Euros, that's going to be impossible to get. Everyone wants him. And Mbeumo is just so good, like perfect for us in terms of our style of play. You'll work hard, you'll track back, but he's Premier League proven. He gets the goals, gets an assist, double figures, more seasons for a team that finishes in the bottom half. You can imagine what he could do for us. Still good age, only 26. I think he could fly to us. I think he'd be just perfect, and I think it's one that we could make happen. He's openly said that he wants a new challenge now, so he is on the market. Brentford will probably want decent money, 45 million for him, something like that. So. But when he's done it every year in the Premier League, it just makes sense. Yes, you could go for this fancy younger signing from abroad or whatever, but for me, this is where maybe I would back the Eddie Howe, looking towards just close at home where Mbeumo would be spot on. He really would for me. I used to always like Chiesa. I was saying Chiesa last summer, but there's just something about him where it's just question marks over the fitness, question marks over form. Sometimes he's a bit of a Alan St. Maximin in the sense where he seems to play class or crap. There's no in between for me with Chiesa. He either scores 2 goals, gets an assist, or goes missing. So I'm not sure if I want to be putting up with that week in, week out. even though he is on the cheap as well. And Villa meant to be in talks with him now, so you know for a fact he'll go there and be unreal. But Mbeumo, my number one pick, mate.
The only problem with Mbeumo is he'll be off to the African Cup of Nations in January, so you're losing him for a serious patch of games next season. So that could put a dampener on that one, I think. But he's a quality player. Yeah.
I thought he was French, but maybe has he declared? I mean, I know he's not fully.
No, he's Cameroonian. He's Cameroon. Yeah, he plays from.
No.
We'll just get a Saudi loan in January. Yeah, I mean, that'll be.
Bring Maxi back.
I feel bring Maxi back.
Make everyone happy.
Yeah.
Bring Miggy back. Bring Miggy back when he goes there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there is a shout from Chad in here for Keith Gillespie, so you know anything's possible. I do recall us talking about Papi Cisse at one dark point of time, when we had two strikers injured. So anything is possible around here. Okay, Krisho, you mentioned Bakayoko. He'd still be my kind of big choice for that role. Again, he's probably a bit raw and a little bit more risky, but I think he would fall into that category of affordable. And also, you know, could be molded, could be coached really, really well by staff.
Or
Any
Neto.
other names for you?
Neto.
I'd
really like to see Neto. He's young, he's talented. I think he's anytime I've ever seen him play, he's always played very well, and he affects games. He's an impact guy. I think they could work on him as well to kind of play the way Eddie Howe wants. He could be well trainable. But again, I've got an awful feeling he'd cost a fortune, like a real fortune. Like if Max Kilman is 45 million quid, Neto is 60, 70 million pounds. So
especially for a player who's missed 50% of the last 3 seasons at 24, who's only going to get worse with age because he bases his game off his explosiveness with pace. So it's not something I can see us going for, especially with our medical team being as useless as they are. Let's be honest about it. Like,
I mean, we have enough players that have already missed half the season. We don't need to keep adding to that list. And I'm also loving, shout out to the listeners, Chris and Niall, same wavelength, because they both used a cheese strings reference to describe Pedro Neto's hamstrings, which is interesting when they're called hamstrings and the boys are talking about cheese. But anyway, enough food talk for now. Alan, anyone for you out of that list, or anyone that didn't make that list for the right wing, right forward?
I still am going with my Takakubo shout because it is unbelievable, and the fact we're going to Japan just makes me think that looks like it's a very good deal to make, because you'd sell 1 billion jerseys over there in Asia if we get him in. So it'd be good all around, make money off of it. Niall's a genius is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, yourself and Niall are on the same page. But there's that, obviously, that would be fantastic. It would add a lot to that trip and the value, but equally, if you've ever watched any of his clips, he's an unbelievable player.
He's quality.
And I remember him being linked with Liverpool as a potential Salah replacement, which is a massive shout, really, and big shoes to fill. So, again, he's not going to be like for like, but he's, caliber, unbelievable. Again, there's a bit of a risk, but it would be fun. It would be class. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's keep going through the roles on the list here. We're going to jump forward and back a little bit, but I think we should move to striker next. Now, this is an interesting one because this is where I feel if we were going to make a signing, Matty, that this would be a surprise factor, the same way we did with Isak. And one of the reasons I kind of say that or think that, yes, there's a lot of question marks over whether Wilson will leave or not. And the general narrative is if Wilson leaves, we're going to bring in quite a big name. If he stays, maybe we bring in a younger striker who might accept being second or third choice. So there's a kind of a question mark there. But from a names that are doing the rounds perspective, literally less than half of what we have on that right-sided forward position, which, again, as I said, either we're not looking at any or it's all being kept on the down low. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is very much the name that's kind of still circling around, has been for a few weeks. His namesake, Dominic Solanke, as well. You can never get away from that, obviously, with the Eddie Howe connection. Just signed somebody called Dominic, apparently, is the desire there. We've got Karim Konate is one that I quite like. He's currently at, is it Salzburg?
Salzburg, yeah.
So again, you'd like to think Paul Mitchell knows a bit about him. And then the last one who's been linked with every club under the sun in the last week, which is Desiree Doué. They're the main names that have been floating around, Matty. But again, do you see this as being a role we need to fill, that we will fill? And again, would you be putting a lot of that budget on that role, on that second or third striker?
I think so. I think you should. I think the Wilson one's interesting because you think, I think it's time. Do you know what I mean? I think it's time to, the injuries are there. But then again, without European football, it suits him having that 20 minutes off the bench here and there. So it wouldn't be the worst thing to do to keep him. All depends on budget-wise, really. But in an ideal world for me, I would get a fresh striker to challenge with Isak, whether that be someone who's experienced, who's like late 20s, early 30s, who is happy to do that role, or that young up and coming one. I like the Canate link there, and with Mitchell as well. You could see that one putting 2 and 2 together. To be honest, I see Jackie there with a shout for Mbolo. Someone like that would be spot on as well. Do you know what I mean? Like a forward player like that who can come in and out the team. But it's interesting that there's not huge amount of names branded about really. But we'll wait and see. I think it all depends on Callum Wilson's future, really, whether they go for someone or not. Which even without you still should, because it was shown last season. And I know we had extra games, but even now, Isak or Wilson, if not both, are going to get injured, even with 1 game a week. Definitely are. So you're gonna need a third striker. I think it's mad that we haven't got a third striker. So regardless, I would be investing, even if it is someone who is not great, not flash. Listen to someone who's got Premier League experience, like Brereton Diaz, who's went to Sheffield United, scored a couple of goals, not flashy, but he offers something different. I wouldn't mind someone like me who's happy to be third choice, probably try his hardest, a bit like a Rondon situation. Where he seems to have just tried his heart out for it because he knows it's the best chance he's going to get at a big club. So someone like that would do a job as a 3. But if Wilson goes, then we're going to have to look. We're going to have to look heavy on getting him replaced.
We used to have a player who hasn't done anything remarkable since he left, apart from score a hat-trick against us, Chris Wood.
Yeah.
He probably could fit that mold of where you're going with that in terms of third choice. But yeah, I think maybe that bridge has been burned after he scored that hat-trick and turned into basically prime fucking George Weah for that particular evening for Nottingham Forest. Shout from Mukoko in here for Aaron as well. Aaron definitely plays a bit of Football Manager as well.
Absolutely.
He's a big Football Manager one too. And equally a shout here from Daniel as well. Like, why would should we not go for Mbeumo and maybe another right-sided player, maybe another one of those 25 unnamed, and then potentially one of those could be kind of filling in up front. We saw them obviously use Anthony Gordon up front when needed. It's not something you want to have to rely on. And Matty, as you said, one or both of those two, in Isak and Wilson, if they're both obviously there together next season, are potentially going to be injured and maybe at the same time. So it's risky to not have somebody who can fall in naturally and be moulding for that role. Alan, so are you looking at, I suppose you're looking at a more experienced and slightly more expensive and ready striker, or are you looking at an up-and-coming again?
I would like, if it was my decision, I'd sign that Yilmaz lad who played up front for Turkey the other night. B.A. Yilmaz. Now, he's a right winger by trade, but he ran Van Dijk for 90 minutes. He ran him around in circles, and he looked like a serious handful. That's exactly what we want. Someone who's not going to come in and demand to play week in, week out. God forbid someone gets injured on the right. He can slot in there. He can play up front. And let's be honest, wingers can play either side, really. So he's fitting the bill of all 3 up there. So that would be my shout for the striker, and then lump big on another winger so that we can keep the lads rotating.
Yeah, and there's even a shout there for Karim Adeyemi, who, he's rapid. We've seen him play for Dortmund. Wonderful haircut as well. Almost Colaccini vibes the way he's going with that. Again, very similar to Anthony Gordon maybe in terms of style and also role. But equally, if someone like him was available, and Aaron is kind of echoed it there, Dortmund have about 4 strikers. Sebastian Haller is another one who played in the Premier League at West Ham. David Moyes didn't really get a tune out of him. Obviously, he had his health issues, but has been quite consistent. Was it Ajax and then Dortmund?
Fulkrug would be decent as well. Fulkrug for Germany. Yeah,
I
mean, like someone like that, where because he did exactly what he does for Germany. Basically, do you know what I mean? Trick him on with 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go. Nightmare for defenders. Yeah, just get wing backs whipping balls in. Lewis Hall crossing it in. Everyone, you know what I mean? That would be a great option off the bench, I think.
Shearer loves him. Shearer's
you can see why, innit? Dying breed. Dying breed.
There was a guy, he's playing in the Euros, George's Migatadze, the Georgian guy, he plays for Metz. He's after signing for it. I'm not exactly
Monaco.
sure. Monaco, is it?
Well, it's not confirmed yet, but he's all but signed for Monaco.
I like the look of this. I like the cut of this guy's jib. Yeah, this guy.
But with
23.
Monaco signing him, it means Embolo will be free to leave. And Paul Mitchell was previously with Monaco. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he arrives at St. James's Park.
Right, okay.
There's definitely a lot going on there that we should keep an eye on, I think, for sure, yeah. When you started talking about Fulkrug and old school there, for some reason my mind went to Hosselu, and then my mind went to Mikel Merino and Iose Perez, who are all now in the semi-final of the Euros.
They're all going to win it. They're all going to win a Euros in a few years' time.
Oh,
that's what they're going to do. Unbelievable.
It's like Newcastle United have become part of the multiverse, and one of those, streams of the multiverse is that Hosselu and Mikel Merino and Iose Perez are winning the Euros with Spain. I can't believe it's going on, but anyway. I think everyone's joking that Albert Luque or Jesus Gammas are going to pop up at some point.
Jesus Gammas. I forgot to be them, like.
Okay, so lads, it's a slightly trickier position, I would say, to fill, and I think we all have the same kind of consensus. We do need a striker, but the question is what's happening with Callum Wilson, and I think that question, once that's answered, that will dictate where we go and what we do, because we could easily say, yeah, let's go spend 40-50 million on a striker. But again, if Wilson is still going to be around, it'll be tricky. As Jackie has said there, Cher will be having words with Embolo. Cher would have words with everyone, lads.
Yeah.
Fabian Cher. And one last shout of nostalgia from Craig. Matty, would you bring back Mitrovic if Callum Wilson was to go?
I would. I said I would have had him in January when we had knee strikers. Do you know what I mean? When Gorman was playing up top, that would have been ideal. A little Saudi loan, ruffle everyone's feathers. I'd have Mitro back. Like, I can't see it happening.
Yeah.
No.
That would be a laugh indeed. Right, we'll wrap up. I don't think we'll talk about the goalkeeper situation. It's an interesting one because the Trafford rumours are still going around. It looks like Mamardashvili might go away. But I think really quickly, just to seeing as we have you here, Matty, do you think Pope is first choice next season, the way things stand? Obviously, we don't think it'll be Vlachodimos. That guy, I don't even know if I pronounced that right. And John Ruddy is John Ruddy. Do you think the signing of both those keepers and who they are tells you that Nick Pope is number one for next season? Or do you think there's still something?
Yeah, definitely does to me. It looks like they've put the budget elsewhere, doesn't it? Really, by getting in Odysseas, the Forest keeper. I'm going to go over his first name because I'm not going to try and pronounce the other one that you mentioned. So I think him coming in, Ruddy coming in just to be a coach by the looks of it. Yeah. He's there. So it looks like, Pope's going to be the one. I think maybe they would have focused on a new number one more if there was more games. But I think they're hoping that obviously Pope's shoulders can stay in place for once a week. Do you know what I mean? That's the plan. Yeah. Unless with these Trafford rumours still being there, he's going to be on the move. Because there's no way you spend 20 odd million on Trafford and then you have Pope sitting on the bench and you've got Odysseas and you've got Ruddy and you've got Gillespie. I think it'll be Pope, but there's still rumours knocking about that Ipswich Town want to get him. He obviously was at their academy. He's a Ipswich fan. So unless they signed him, then I don't think we'd sign another goalkeeper.
As you said, you don't think we'd spend 20 million on Trafford and have him there while Pope is in the squad. We kind of did the same with Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall when we were like, okay, well, Trippier and Dan Burn are clearly ahead of them. So nothing, I suppose never say never is where I am with that because you just don't know. But
if we're saying three goalkeepers in one window, though, what the hell are we doing? Especially with keeping Gillespie.
Yeah.
Then we'd have 5 or 6 keepers. I think if we didn't get Odysseas, then you could see, Trafford being the understudy, but we're running out of room.
I hope we have a glorious goalkeeper jersey as part of this new Adidas kit. I'll tell you that much. Sorry,
Paul. Who is Brajan Gruda? He plays for Mainz. He's a winger.
He's not a player I'm too familiar with, but I did spot his name earlier.
It's coming up a lot in the last 2 or 3 days. I've never heard of this guy before, but
I believe, but I don't know much about him. He's with Mainz in Germany, but I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Lads,
keep an eye on that.
Krisho has his network across Europe. He's got his spies.
Keep an eye on that.
And he's got his finger on the pulse. Excellent. Right. Well, we've talked about defenders, we talked about right wingers, talked about striker, and then touched on a couple of midfielders here and there and a little bit on the goalkeeper position. In terms of transfers we need to make, I think we're all very clear on the roles, and we've got some really good names that pop up there. I suppose one final question to round off that section, Matty. do you think we're going to, like, realistically, if we were to sign 3 of those, fill 3 of those roles, how many of them do you think are going to be names that we've mentioned, or how many are going to take us all by complete surprise? Give me the good news.
I think striker I'll take it by surprise. I think right winger may even take it by surprise.
Yeah.
But I think one of the defenders have been linked with. I think that your Tomori or your Thiago looks the most likely. And the other centre backs that have been lingering around for a year or two. So yeah, I think striker or right winger could really take us by surprise. You're hearing 60 million for Neto and this, that, and that'll probably be someone completely out of the blue.
Yeah,
I'd be okay if that happened. And I suppose to throw it out to the listeners, guys, we've had loads in through the chat, so thank you very much. For anyone who's listening to this, obviously post the live show, shout in the comments who you think we should sign across those roles. Is there any names we didn't mention? There are plenty of them going around, and that will probably only continue. Okay, right. Before we let Matty go back to said sunbed and said walks around in the sunshine, let's just rattle through a little bit of listener Q&A, Matty. Now, we have a couple of questions that came in when we announced that you were going to join us and make your return. By the way, shout out to Matty, who's our first guest to actually return live to the show. So that's always a good sign he's come back. So well done. You survived the first one very well. Now, I did spot a question, Matty, that is it's a bit loaded, I must say. I'm going to bring it up on screen, and this seems to be in relation to some comments you made a couple of weeks back. Now, this is, of course, the Irish Mags show, so you do have to tread carefully with this listener base that we have. So the question came in from Daniel that we should ask Matty about if he stands by his comment a couple of weeks back when he called Roy Keane a dirty Irish bastard. Now, Matty, would you like to address the accusation that you actually made this statement? Do you need to make an official apology to Roy Keane? Or would you like to give us the context by which this has come up?
I didn't realise I was going to need a solicitor for this show. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna be like on a passing clouds again, am I? Do you know what I mean? These balls I mentioned, I'm still waiting outside first.
It's all over now.
Oh, classic.
I'm pretty sure I only called him without the Irish in there. I'm pretty sure I did, but if not, he is Irish, and he exactly. Definitely was a dirty bastard. So really, but it's just taking a bit. Like, to be fair, I'm a huge fan of the overlap, and Roy Keane's the only reason. Like, he's the best, and he is the best pundit. He's so funny. His reaction, he doesn't have to say anything. It's just his facial expressions. But the way he goes on, Gary Neville's okay. Right, he's a bit of a legend. He's decent. But Roy Keane, that's what it's all about, isn't it? He makes punditry these days, whether it's on Sky or on podcast. Exactly, mate. He's box office. So I love Roy Keane as a pundit, but obviously didn't like him as a manager for the Mackhams or as a player for Man U.
100%.
Well said, Matty. Well said, Matty.
Nice save.
Yeah, I mean, he really keeps the likes of, like, you mentioned the overlap there, or stick to football or all that. He really keeps them on their toes. He, like Neville, Wright, Carragher, like I find that it's Jill, isn't Jill Scott, that's her name, that's on it with him.
Mm-hmm.
She worships the ground Roy Keane walks on, but it's hilarious when he just turns things upside down on that. Okay, thank you for addressing that question, and hopefully you won't need to consult your solicitors, but it is live on the internet now. Let's go to another question, and Alan and Chris, if you spot any questions, obviously shout them out. But I did have one here that's an interesting one, really quickly. I'd love to put this one away. It's a question from Michael that says, Matty, do we think Gordon is going to go to Liverpool? Especially knowing that we talked about Pope and Ipswich, boyhood, etc. Like, Gordon and Liverpool?
I think I preferred the Roy Keane question. And thinking about Gordon going to Liverpool. Listen, it never seemed to be something that you could even fathom, to be honest. Like, but the rumours are there, he's had his head turned and all that. I'm speaking to people in Liverpool as well, and they're not really asked. They don't really want him. They don't really need him. You look at Liverpool's left-hand side; it's totally stacked. You've even got Jota that can play there, Gakpo, Nunes, and they're just more of the striker role. You mentioned the actual left wingers. Your Luis Diaz's. They don't need Anthony Gordon. I don't think they'll even want to sign Anthony Gordon. I think it was very exaggerated, that story, to be honest with you. And I don't see him going there. And I just pray no one else comes in for him, because Gordon's ours now, and he's our star, and we want him here for years.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. I know City also have emerged in the last 24, 48 hours as well. Like talks.
They can get to fuck as well.
Yeah,
seriously, they can get out.
Okay, let's make sure that the board of Newcastle, Paul Mitchell, are advised to send Man City to Crisho when they're interested, so
they can get to fuck.
Yeah. Okay, and this
they'll be in Division 2 in
exactly. Lee Pep.
Yeah.
Bring it back again. This is probably a connected one as well from Niall, Matty, because obviously, whether or not Gordon was to go, there's obviously a question mark there. Okay, if Gordon is first choice, if Gordon was fit for 38 league games and X amount of cup games next season, how often is Barnes going to play, considering they both pretty much are kind of destined to play on the left for Newcastle? It says Niall said it's a pivotal season for Barnes if he's not up to scratch, but where do you see Barnes getting game time here? Is it if Gordon isn't fit, is there a rotation? Maybe Gordon will be on the right, like we've seen the odd time. What are your thoughts on that with Harvey Barnes?
I think you could see more of Gordon switched over at the right, not as a starter really, but to accommodate Barnes as a sub or in cup games. I think you could see Anthony switch over at that right hand side and cut in on the favoured left foot. That works fine for me. But that's why people, anyway, all this PSR stuff with the deadline of having to shift it and sell those players, where you look at it and think, was that a necessary £40 million spent last year on Harvey Barnes, and it should have been probably spent elsewhere? And listen, I'm a Harvey Barnes fan. I think he's a good player. I think he can come good. He's already scored some screamers, some important goals for Newcastle, even after all the injuries. So I like him, but he is probably going to be stuck for starts, I would say. Not necessarily minutes. I think he's a nailed on sub every game, but yeah, for starts, it's going to be hard to push Anthony Gordon out of the team, that's for sure.
It is, but I think equally, now, if Harvey Barnes was here, he might have something different to say, right, in terms of where he sees his future and does he want to be a squad player. But we're all looking at it going, and again, it always takes me back to that Villa game, opening day of the season last season. I was there in St. James's Park, and we brought on Harvey Barnes and we brought on Callum Wilson. We had this incredibly strong bench. And to be able to bring on someone like Harvey Barnes, we saw it. We literally seen him change games coming on as a sub. And yeah, Gordon isn't going to be able to play every single game. So I think it largely will depend on Gordon's attitude, his approach. Is he happy with that? Because if he is, or if he's willing to kind of put up a battle, having the two of those lads really pushing for a position, that's not a bad place to be at all. Okay. Couple more questions. Here's one in from Daniel. Do we think this window could be the most important one yet? The club need to show not only the fans, but the players also that we mean business and still have ambitions to be the best. So, if you were to stop right now and say, well, we reached a point in this window where we've signed 2 backup goalkeepers and Lloyd Kelly on a free, it's probably a little bit underwhelming, and maybe the club need to show a bit more ambition. But it's probably an obvious statement, Matty, right? It is our biggest and most important transfer window, especially with the outgoings that seem to be happening as well. A bit of churn, a bit of turnover.
It seems pivotal going into the new season for me, this one, because we have to get back on track, obviously. I mean, after the letdown of no European football, the toll that last season took on the squad as a whole, it's massive this window, and it's massive that we have to get it right, to be honest. We can't really afford a player that we're bringing that doesn't hit the ground running like we did last year with Tonali, obviously due to unforeseen circumstances, but we can't afford to do 50-60 million on someone this year and have that sort of impact again, or the lack of it. And it's, there's lots of players that are coming to the end of their contract or 1 year left. We mentioned Wilson, Miggy, talked about Trippier, Dubravka. All these players are up in the air whether they'll go or not, really. Signings, like you said, has to match our ambitions and kick us on, really, and get us where we want to be again, which is top 4, top 5, top 6 even. We'll be out at Europa League and a good cup run again. Hopefully get back Wembley.
Agreed.
Yeah, and again, it probably tees up Roger's question there. Sorry, Chris, I'll jump back to you in a second. Roger had the question in, which is very, very, I suppose, relative. Who do you think would be the next transfer in? So we've talked a lot about the positions we want to fill, and we've mentioned easily 50 names on this evening's show. Realistically, and I'm going to come to all 3 of you. If you were to give me one name in terms of the next transfer, today is the 8th of July. It is 9 p.m. Apparently, we've just seen Alan St. Maximin go to Fenerbahce, by the way.
Yeah.
But again,
Is he?
park that for now. I don't think.
Yeah, well, it's not 100% confirmed, but it's a lot of reports that they're breaking in the last few minutes that he's gone.
Oh, wow.
So,
The headband sales of Turkey are about to explode.
Mourinho, then, yeah, that's where Mourinho is.
yeah,
at,
Jose.
Oh, that's class. That's flop.
He's gonna kill Jose off.
Yeah.
That's the end of Jose.
He is. Jose, man, he
Push
kind of be
him
dealing with. He's dealt with Balotelli. That was a long time ago. He's kind of be dealing with Maxi now. He's kind of. Jesus.
Oh, keep your eyes on the Turkish league next season, folks. But back into Newcastle, and Chris, I'll come to you first. One name who would be our next transfer in? Do you think?
Yeah. Okay, it's either going to be Morgan Gibbs-White or Nectar.
Okay, Gibbs-White or
There you
Nectar.
go.
I asked you for one name.
Yeah.
We got two.
There you go.
One of them was double-barreled as well. That's fine, Chris. Alan.
I'm gonna go with Kubo because we're going to Japan. I just think it makes the most sense.
Okay,
Hopefully.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Now, Matty, back to you, sir.
I'm going to go with Howe from AC Milan, the centre back.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the one announced. I do like the Kubo thing, and I think Newcastle United as a club, since the takeover, are due a sign like that. You see all the big clubs do it. And like you mentioned, not like for shared sales and to grow and everything. And I think we are due something like that, really. Whether it be in that Asian market or American or whatever. I think you've seen clubs do it in the past. Man United used to do it all the time, didn't they? All the time. Park Ji-sung and that. I think we're due something like that, to be fair. I think you could be onto something.
Interesting.
Well, we could get the LeBron of football as well.
Yeah.
Because you said Malik Thiaw, Matty, I'm just gonna throw a curveball in there and say maybe it's Tomori. Maybe
I hope you're right.
Everyone
I
seems
prefer
to think
Tomori.
Maybe Tomori would be
Quality.
Okay, excellent. I can see Canny Scott asking, did we talk about Gordon rumours to Liverpool and City? Canny Scott, I can tell you that Chris Show has said they can all get to fuck. So I think that's really just enough.
That's
of
it
an
sorted.
answer to that question.
And getting a T-shirt with that made, get to fuck.
Get to fuck. That's the technical term for it. Right, one or two more and then we'll wrap it up, guys. There's one in here. Do you know what? We'll pop it up on screen. There's actually Canny Scott as well. And it links into Niall's question about Champions League. So what do we think of the constant negative links from the Chronicle about all the star players leaving? They're meant to be our local paper, but they're owned by a London-based company. You've heard Lee Ryder, and it actually said he had to disable some comments on his videos or something like that. This is loaded in two ways. One, it's the constant talk about us selling our big players, and Niall has said, he thinks if we don't get Champions League, that will also lead to Bruno and Isaac and the likes of them going. But this seems to be specific about the local media, Matty, so you're probably best placed to take this one.
I think it's a shame that they do seem to be leaning with that too heaviness on clickbait and that now. I know they've got huge backlash on social media, like Scott says, disabling comments and stuff shows you what the majority are thinking and saying. So it's just over the top, man. Like, I know they're trying to get attention and get clicks and that, but there's a line you should cross, and especially when you are a tabloid that's in Newcastle that has been or was, like a lot of people are saying, respected. And that's where a lot of people before the likes of us doing what we do used to go for the news. Do you know what I mean? Used to go pick up the Chronicle in the afternoon, pick up the Ping on the weekend after the football scores and stuff like that. And they're falling behind the times and they're trying to catch up. And I think they're seeing the likes of the attention that Craig Hope and that gets when he's like, oh, Gordon's talks Liverpool. They're like, oh, we'll jump on that. Do you know what I mean? They're wanting, it looks like they're wanting the clicks a bit too much, because they're using some mad sources, aren't they? Like, what was the one from Gordon to Liverpool? I think someone said it was like Footy Insider or something, which is
Footy
by, like,
Insider.
Uni students who are just using like Samsungs. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? Is that the sources you've got to know? Like, is that where journalism's at? So
he was tweeting his own tweets saying Gordon is going, and then he's like, oh, there's no info on this. And you're going, like, you're arguing with yourself, mate. Will you calm down and just give us the proper info or say nothing? Like, it's just gone beyond the joke at this stage. You're like, just say nothing if you don't have anything to say. It's ridiculous.
Even if you click on the links online, it's incredibly impossible to read the actual story because it's just blank, ads, this. I really booked a holiday to Turkey. I was just reading about who's signing last week. I was like, hang on a second there. So if we get going to it's difficult, but I mean, when everything is kind of money centric and like 83 print publications in the UK are based in London. So I mean, it's all down there, and whatever, like Matty said, goes. They'll just follow tack. They'll put up anything to sell a newspaper, anything whatsoever.
It's kind of the world we live in, in particular with social media and everything like that. So you just kind of have to navigate. And lads, what I will say, there's a beautiful thing on the internet, particularly on Twitter, that says block or mute. And I can't recommend it enough. If you need to do it, because you'll avoid some of that. But Alan loves the carnage.
Oh,
right.
yes, love it.
We will wrap up, conscious of time here, lads. But just one last, it's 2 questions from the Irish Mags group that came in before we went live that can be connected into one, Matty. And it's about Eddie Howe. So Hainsey asked, do we think Eddie Howe's under huge pressure to deliver a trophy, which is probably fair. Canis has an interesting question, though, that I think we should address before we leave. If Southgate does leave England after the Euros, win or lose or whatever happens, there's a lot of discussion around Eddie Howe being a serious option. Do you think that he would leave? And if he was to leave, what would happen in your own eyes? Where would we be looking? How would you feel? All of the above. That's a low.
I think the FA, the FA will definitely be looking. The FA will definitely want Eddie Howe. For me, he'd be right at the top of their list, especially if it's starting to be true that they want to go ahead with another English coach. They don't want to go down the route that hasn't worked in the past of your Capellos and whatnot. So if you're looking around, who else are going to get? If it's not Eddie Howe and you're talking Englishmen, you're talking Graham Potter, Frank Lampard. You know what I mean? Like, not good enough, really. So I would be the man. But surely not. I don't think Eddie Howe, even though and he said it in the Gary Neville interview, I think he would want to become England manager one day. I don't think that day is anytime soon. I cannot see Eddie Howe as the man he is, the personality he is, the work ethic he has. From a bloke that turns up at 5, 6 a.m. and stays there until 6, 7 p.m. He loves it that much. You don't do that if you don't love it. I can't see him being like, right, that's sound. I'll just do a job every 2 years in the summer. And I'll spend my weekends going up and down to Old Trafford and Villa Park and St. James's and watching the few players. I think he would hate that. I think it's something way down the line for him. I think he's bored in the project. He wants to be the man that, makes Newcastle to that next level, to that big club, to bring trophies. So I can't see him going this summer, but in the future, I could see him leaving. But it's I wouldn't even know where to turn in terms of managers, because I look at the names that are out there, and that's the reason, like Ten Hag, that's staying at Man U, because there isn't that many great managers out there anymore. To be fair, is there really? Let us know what you think. Like, any names that come to mind if Eddie Howe left tomorrow? Who you got out there? Thomas Tuchel. Like, there's not loads, is there?
I don't see there any.
It's
maybe Xavi,
right? Depending on it depends on who's around at certain times. It's always circumstantial of the time. Like, if it was to happen now, you'd be worried, but then in 6 months,
Bring Rafa back. Rafa Benitez. Boom.
Kick him off, will you?
Come on, he's good.
Hey, Alan, you know as well as I do that Chris Shaw lives in a world where Rafa comes back to Newcastle and Roy Keane ends up as the England manager, and that would just brighten everything up completely. And Matty, you'd have it in the comments if that happens. So you would.
Jose Mourinho. All right then, Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
Well, him and Maxi. Yeah.
Dinosaur football.
Bring them back in January. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's the note that we're going to finish on, lads. Matty, huge thank you for coming on, joining us. And again, as I said, our first guest to be on for a second appearance on the Irish Mag Show. We always love having you on. We noticed you didn't manage to squeeze a Guinness in on this one, so you're going to have to make up for that, even though Chris has promised us all the points.
Promised you all Guinness in Newcastle, lads.
Nice.
I've
had to keep myself a Wednesday, lads, because I know how pissed I'm going to have to get watching Southgate, so I'm taking it easy. I'm taking it easy.
Well, while you're enjoying or not enjoying that, Matty, you can think about Jackie's final comment that says Steve Bruce for England. So take that one with you to Wednesday. That's
Flissy out.
Matty, before
we let you go, Irish at this, I'll get my key jersey.
Classic. We've really gone down the rabbit hole on this one. Matty, before we let you drop off, is there anything you want to shout out, or if our listeners somehow don't already know, where can people find you? And you can give us your postcode as well if you need to.
I'll give you the old Sun Trap postcode. No, it's the Magpie channel on YouTube, Instagram, all of that. And pleasure, boys. Good seeing you again. See you for the Cellar Weekender. Give us a shout. We'll definitely have to go find where the best Guinness is. We'll go with all these recommendations and we'll sort it out ourselves.
Yeah,
happy days.
That'll be cool.
Sounds good.
Just go on a tour sampling all of the fine Guinness.
Definitely.
There's only around 500 pubs that we'll need to check, so we may need a few Irish mags on board to help us out. Excellent stuff. Well, you can find all the links for Matty, the Magpie channel, everything below in the description. And of course, for the Irish Mag socials as well. Make sure you're following all over the place. Thank you again for all the questions and comments that came in. Really good questions, really good crack, good insights, and a few wild ones either side. We will be back for more Irish Magnus next week. So until then, how are the lads? Slán Guffol. And we'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much, lads. And of course, thank you very much, Matty.
Thanks, Matty.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks, Matty. Thank you.
Come on, fellas.
Have a
Good
good
luck.
one, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.